Foundations to get to a six-pack. Right, let's say you are someone that is 100 kilos.
You could even go to something called a Zig Zag diet. And
Before we do that, we've got an interesting fact for you, Dan. Not a random fact, it's an interesting fact. And this is, fat cells do not disappear.
I mean, one of the big areas, this is a specialist area of mine. The old high protein, which is key in anyone's diet. High protein is mine, who recently signed up with me, and she thought I was short just because I'm shorter than you. And it really got in my key.
At the beginning, train your abs.
Welcome to You Know What, the podcast for you that dispels the myths and BS in the fitness industry whilst leveling up your A game in everyday life. We are your hosts, Nick Finch and Dan King.
Welcome back to another episode, guys, of the You Know What podcast. Today we're going to talk about how to get six-pack in 6 weeks. Dan?
Well, it's light work normally, isn't it? Let's be honest. Six packs are so easy to get these days. No, you do need to grind for them. There is a lot of kind of stigma around the six pack and how to develop a six pack. Now, actually, fun fact. This isn't interesting, this is just more fun fact from my side.
Yeah.
Some people are genetically not inclined to have a six pack.
Really?
Yeah.
You mean like 8 packs?
Yeah, technically.
Yeah.
Some people can have 8 packs, some people can even have 4.
Pack.
You got a
Yeah, it's weird. Like when I went down to 4% by 4.5% body fat, I had a 7-pack only.
So what, you have 6 and then 1 down the bottom?
It's really annoying.
There's no split there.
There's slightly. Everyone's abs are different, right?
Yeah.
So, like some people's abs are like perfectly chiseled. They have the 6-pack. It's like all lined up, and then you get me. You get the wobble. It's like a wonky shaped. But yeah, no. I mean, obviously, getting 6-pack in 6 weeks sounds like we're bullshitting, but we're not.
No.
Because it depends on what level you're at the moment. So we're going to talk about that obviously today. Before we do that, we've got an interesting fact for you, Dan. Not a random fact, it's an interesting fact. And this is, fat cells do not disappear, they only shrink.
I actually knew that.
Yeah, I thought you would.
Yeah, that is like my bread and butter. I remember like back in lockdown, I did like a 4-minute video on fat cells and how fat cells, you lose fat cells.
Yeah.
But one thing I think people have to remember is when you're losing body fat, you have to bear in mind that water has to enter into those fat cells to replace the fat that you've lost, because your body doesn't want to lose those cells, because essentially what you're doing is destroying cells. And if your body's going, nah, that's not happening. So.
Well, it's interesting because your body can actually build new fat cells, but it can't get rid of them.
Yeah.
So if you have those fat cells, they'll always be with you. Doesn't mean you're going to be fat forever. It just means you're going to have more fat cells potentially. Anyway.
Yeah.
Interesting. So if you're someone that is around 18 to 20% body fat, this is going to apply to you, because you can get a 6-pack around about 18 to 20% depending on who you are. All you need to do is drop a few percent and you're there. What
would you say if you were going to tell the listeners and the watchers right now, what does 18 to 20% look like?
That is a great question. That is something that I do not have visually with me right now, but you can actually go into Google and type in body fat percentages for men and women, and it gives you a rough guide of what that looks like. But everyone's different. For example, I actually hold more fat than I look, whereas a lot of it's visceral fat, so underneath the organs and stuff, which apparently is not good. And then some people don't.
You also have to bear in mind, ladies out there who are watching this, that ladies will hold more body fat than men will, because naturally that's a maternal way that your body holds onto it, because it's preparing itself to have a baby. So you have to bear that in mind, that if, women, you're always going to be a high body fat percentage. If you drop very low, it's actually quite dangerous a lot of the time, and you will find that your reproductive processes will change. So irregular periods, feeling fatigued, feeling tired, hormones out of whack, that will happen if your body fat goes too low, such as people who compete in bodybuilding competitions. So just bear that in mind. Yeah,
perfect, mate. What would you say is like how much more percent on average would you say a woman is to a man? 6%?
I'd say 5 to 6%. Yeah. So if you've got like a 20% man, you'll normally have a 25% woman. But also, like, women store fat around their boobs. Like, there's a lot of fat stored around there, and you hold a lot of fat around your legs and waist. That's your natural positionings. I do have people that I train who do technically have it in other regions more so, like around their arms and like even calves. Like, some people have bigger calves. It's different for different people, but that's just a very genetic general consensus of it.
Mate, it's a strange one. Like, everyone's genetically different. But what is a 6-pack? Well, first of all, a 6-pack is you having your abs visual. You can see them. That's it. That's all it is. Like, there's no confusion around it. If you can see definition, you got a 6-pack. There's different levels. There's cut, there's diced, there's shredded. There's the outline. And if you're someone that's 18-20%, you can get a good defined six-pack, 9 times out of 10, if you do the things that we're going to tell you to do today.
Yeah, and I do want to make one argument that it's people always make the accusation online that abs are made in the kitchen. I understand the premise of it. You need to train your core. You do need to train your core. Don't avoid that stuff. That, for me, abs are made in the kitchen is an excuse not to train your core and efficiently work your core, because it's still a muscle group at the end of the day, people. It still needs to be trained.
And equally on the other side, for context, for those that just train abs and you don't worry about your diet, worry about your diet, because you do need to do that as well. It's a double whammy.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. I like that. That's a good thing I put that in, mate, because it's good to hear your point of view on that. Foundations to get to a six-pack. Right, let's say you are someone that is 100 kilos, you're 18% body fat, and you want to get the six-pack out in the next 6 weeks. All right? Here's what you got to do. Now, first of all, we have the calorie deficit. Everyone knows about this. Hear about it all the time. But first of all, we need to figure out where those calories even come from if we're going to lose weight. So 60% roughly of your daily calorie burn is doing nothing. We call this your basic metabolic rate. So if you're, for example, in hospital and you're not moving about, you can still burn 60% calories from what you normally would doing absolutely nothing.
That's what we're doing now. This is BMR. Literally what we're doing right now is BMR. Granted, we're talking, but it's still, that's your basal metabolic rate. So we're expending energy at this point in time.
Yeah, mate, it's amazing. And then obviously, when it comes to non-exercise movements, such as walking around, doing chores, 20 to 30% of your daily calorie burn can be based on that. And if you're exercising thinking you're going to burn calories from exercising, you're only going to burn about 10% of that daily calorie burn based on a standard 45-minute, 60-minute session. So we don't burn our calories through just training, but the training can influence your BMR. So training is important, but we're not looking at trying to burn the calories through training. So it's very important to just lay that out there right now.
100%. I think a lot of people get caught up and you need to burn off what you eat, and that is I'm telling you right now, it's so toxic to think you need to burn off what you need to eat. Like, it's not okay. You are literally building a bad relationship with your own diet at that point in time. You eat a donut, think, I need to go on a run now. And when people put it in perspective, sometimes I don't agree with some of the posts that people do saying you're putting in perspective what a donut looks like for a workout, because I don't think that's really giving people the right mantra to train. You should train for performance and train to feel better, and then your diet should compensate any composition changes you want, in my opinion.
100%, man. 100%. 1 pound of fat. It's 3,500 calories roughly?
I actually thought it was 3,300, but it's obviously changed since I last read up on this, to be honest.
I think the exact number is somewhere around 3,556 or something.
Wow, okay.
But I've not heard of 3,300. Maybe that's...
or maybe it's just me.
Maybe that's a different type of fat. But,
just different level of fat. But yeah, 3,500 calories, which again, when you put it in perspective, how much energy is 1 pound of fat? Look, you're going to be losing different things when you're losing weight, and especially when you're losing body fat. You can't say none of us without doing actually splicing you open where we know what you're losing. But a pound of fat, 3,500 calories.
That's a word, that is splicing. Splicing you open.
Splicing.
So let's go back to the example. You're 100 kilos. 1% of 100 is 1. So that means 1% body fat is 1 kilo. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 1 kilo times 2.2, which is the conversion to pounds, is 7,700 calories that you need to burn every week to actually see a 1 kilo drop per week, which is 1%. 6 weeks, 6%, get to 12. You get the maths?
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? Now that's quite hard. That's an aggressive cut. This is not something that we recommend you do. However, if you are someone that is super motivated and you can do it, you can drop it. And here's how.
I mean, one of the big areas, this is a specialist area of mine, old high protein, which is key in anyone's diet. High protein is key in anyone's diet for me. Anyone who tells you high protein is not, whether that's plant or meat protein, they're silly and need to get in the bin, because high protein should build up the foundations of your diet at the end of the day. Protein is very satiating, protein is very filling. It takes a lot of energy to break down protein in your body, and that's not a bad thing, because when we talk about thermic effect of food, which Nick mentioned earlier, that thermic effect of food will slightly increase depending on how much protein is in your diet. Stuff like carbohydrates break down very quickly, primary fuel source. And at the end of the day, look, we all like to look nice, and you don't want to just lose body fat and, as we say, get skinny, because that's how you'll look. And I think a lot of people worry too much about just shedding body fat without thinking about composition as a whole. So bear in mind that protein is going to help you build muscle and improve your metabolism over time. So it's improving, it's not enhancing, it's improving over time, but you have to stick to that diet. And bear in mind, protein's great. If you haven't seen my videos, just saying, head on to my Instagram.
And obviously, one of the most important things about protein, aside from that stuff, is that it also satiates you, which means you ain't going to feel as, like, you're not going to have the same cravings that you would have if you had low protein. Like, it tends to fill you up a little bit more. You tend to feel like you don't need to eat other foods to fill you up, basically. So it's a winner. The next...
Apologies for interrupting the podcast today. Thank you so much for tuning in to You Know What. We really appreciate you listening, subscribing, liking and reviewing everything that we're doing. It's so nice to see so many of you interacting with our podcast as it grows. If you didn't already know, me and Nick have one of the fastest growing online coaching platforms on the planet, and we'd love to get you involved. We're looking for ambitious people looking to grow their careers and grow their experience in health and fitness. Me and Nick have over 10 years of working experience in the fitness industry, and we'd love to help you achieve the results that you've always wanted. Make sure to contact either Coach Dan King or Get Fit by Nick, or even just check the link in our bio to the podcast now. We'd love to hear from you.
Point is the 80-20 rule. So this is basically, rather than just cut out all bad foods, and when I say a bad food, I just mean something that you would typically associate with fattening, for example, like a donut, a cookie, cake, etc. Rather than eliminate that stuff, we're going to keep it in the diet, but we're only going to have it 20% of the time. So 80% of the time, you're going to stick to your diet, because you're trying to lose 6% in 6 weeks. You're not going to do it if your diet is crap. And the reason for that is your craving is going to be through the roof. You're not going to be able to control your diet, and it's going to go downhill very quickly. So 80-20 rule means 80% of the time, 5.5 days a week, I think that is. You're on it, and then you're off it a little bit for a day and a half, roughly.
I mean, 80-20 rule, do you know the law that follows? It's Pareto's law. Yeah, baby! Pareto's law, if you wanted to know, for all the nerds out there, it's called Pareto's law. You can Google it. It applies to everything in your life, not just diet. Fun fact.
Is it Pareto?
What, like Pareto?
Is it Pareto principle? Or is it Pareto? Is it Pareto or Pareto?
I thought it was Pareto. But
I can never do this.
I thought it was Pareto, but then I also thought it was Geppetto because I forgot the actual name of it.
I think you're 2-1 up on the vocabulary lately, so I might be wrong.
Pareto.
Right, okay, so we've got the diet side of things sorted. We've got a calorie deficit. Say we're 500 to 700 calorie deficit a day. All right, got a 300 calorie deficit, 300 calories to play with, extra to burn off to actually be able to improve your ability to burn the fat. We can do this through activity. Obviously, we don't want to burn off necessary calories, but activity does burn calories, so we're going to use it. We're going to do 10 to 12,000 steps a day. All right. Now, if you're someone doing 3,000 a day, that might be a lot. So you can always jump up by 3,000 or 4,000, get it roughly 3,000 or 4,000 up, and that will make a difference.
Bear in mind that the average 20-minute walk, you'll do about 3,000 steps. The average 20-minute walk.
Really?
The average 20-minute walk, you will do 3,000 steps. Depending on leg length, obviously, smaller people do more steps. But on average, a 20-minute walk will get you 3,000 steps.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I know because I've done it so many times, and every time I look, I'm like, 3,000 steps. Yeah.
Nice, man. You must have small legs, because when I do it, it's two hours.
I'm sorry,
10,000 steps.
I had a client who recently signed up with me, and she thought I was short just because I'm shorter than you. And it really grinded my gears.
Yeah, I don't do that at all unless you see me in person. And then you're like, oh, wait.
You're actually, well, at some point.
On top of that activity, 10,000 steps a day, ideally that's your focus. 3 to 4 strength sessions a week. We're trying to build the body, build the metabolism, so that when you are in a calorie deficit, you're actually keeping that metabolism ticking over. Like, the metabolism can slow down a little bit when you're cutting. The more aggressive the cut, the worse it can be. That's why we suggest sustainable dieting. But if you're doing it 6 weeks, make sure you strength train, make sure you're being active, and if you're getting a bit fatigued and tired, there's nothing wrong with having a day of extra calories, but make sure you're stretching as well. Like, make sure you're stretching, make sure you're looking after your sleep, stress reduction habits, etc.
You could even go to something called a Zig Zag diet, and this is a little bit of information I picked up over the past few months. Zig Zag dieting is basically where over the course of a week you'll reduce your calories down, surpassing the deficit you're in, and then on weekends you do things basically called refeeds, where you will increase your calories above your maintenance calories normally, and what it does is it works out as a weekly average. If you ever get really, really anxious about the amount of calories you're consuming, please just look at the weekly calorie method and look at your calories as a weekly allowance. So say if you're having 2,000 a day, that's 14,000 a week. Just look at it that way rather than thinking, shit, I missed my calories today.
Yeah.
One day is not going to mean you're not making progress. Calorie tracking is not an accurate science. It's just to give you a rough estimate.
Yeah.
It's still more accurate than not tracking at all. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah, perfect. Zig Zag, love it. Just make sure, obviously, that if you do employ that, try not to take those extra calories that you're taking off the week and put it all into alcohol. Alcohol it kind of works the body a bit differently than obviously carbs, fats and proteins. Like, it's not good to have too much alcohol if you're trying to cut fat. You can, but the less you have, the better it is. That's my thought on that.
I want to throw something in there. I used to have a client who, this is kind of a little bit of a kind of example for you guys out there. I used to have a client who really loved her Maltesers, like absolutely adored her Maltesers. And we worked out how many calories were in Maltesers. Granted, I can't remember for the life of me now. But we said, okay, you're going to have you can have a couple of snack bags of Maltesers. That's fine. They're very minimal. They're under about 150 calories, which is great. But if you're going to be thinking about consuming alcohol on the weekend, we need to remove one of those snack packs from 2 of your days, for example, meaning the calories free up for you to have on a weekend. And when she started, she still lost weight and she was having a glass of wine every weekend. So bear in mind, these things can be had.
Yeah.
You just have to make reasonable choices throughout the week. As I say, remove 2 snack bags equals 1 glass of wine. It's a great way to think about it, and it means your mind becomes clearer. You can enjoy the things you love and enjoy them in small doses rather than overconsumption.
Yeah, mate, perfect. And on top of that, if you want to drop fat quickly, you can, but it means you have to be stricter. If you want to drop fat at a more leisurely pace, which I recommend because it's sustainable, you can still enjoy your life, then don't go for 6% in 6 weeks because it's quite a lot. All right. This is just for those out there that really want to go for it. You can go for it. And then lastly, I forgot to add this into the training part of it, but obviously we're talking at the beginning. Train your abs. Because training your abs will actually engorge blood into that muscle, which will allow it to expand. It will poke out of the skin better. So you actually see it potentially at a higher body fat level than you might otherwise. Okay. And even those that get really lean, they can see their abs. If they don't train them, they don't look impressive the way that you are actually trying to get yours out to look like. So train them hard.
I mean, I'm at a higher body fat percentage at the minute and you can still see my abs, which is great. And I train my abs regularly. So I train them about 2 to 3 times a week, like any other muscle group. You can train them more. Wouldn't advise it. It's not fun. But you can just really push in your training for abs. Prioritize the core. Start with the core if it's something you really want to focus on. Whatever muscle group you want to gain more out of, start your workout with it. You'll have more energy to do it. You'll feel better.
Yeah, and ask us if you want help. We'll send you a program for abs for free. Or you can go on YouTube and go on six pack shortcuts. Mike Chang. God, man, I missed that guy.
Those videos are like, what, 10 years? He does like, I told you, he does like yoga and mobilization stuff now.
He's turned into a proper monk, like yogi kind of guy now.
Yeah, but he kind of like, he was going down that route anyway, to be honest. If I'm honest.
He realised that having the body doesn't actually mean anything necessarily. So you can have a great looking body, but if that's all you focus on, then the rest of your life can suffer too. So it's good to have a bit of everything.
It's got to do something. It's got to be functioning, hasn't it, at the end of the day? If it just looks pretty, great, well done.
Just crunches every day, man.
And I've got a 6-pack. Yeah, dude.
Right, well, thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully those tips will help you to drop 6% in the next 6 weeks. If you want to elaborate, if you want us to elaborate this on further, welcome to DM us on Instagram, Coach Dan King, Get Fed by Nick. We will give you some help. Okay. If you found value, please review. If you're on Spotify, if you're on YouTube, please consider dropping us a comment and a like. It helps us a lot. Okay. Just
remember, all the reviewing, all the liking, all the commenting just pushes the video out to more people. And we, at the end of the day, we want to help as many people as possible. It's our passion, it's our drive. And if you would also like to help more people, send it to your mates.
Yeah, send it to your mates.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Take care.
Catch you
ciao
later.